Howdy, pards, Mr. Holster here. Just having a little coffee in the tack room this morning. It started out as a cold, wet week here. Hopefully by the weekend it's going to dry out because it's supposed to be warmer and warmer. So we will see if we get out there and work on the shooting range. Right now it's a no-go though. If you saw my video earlier in the week, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is what I'm going to talk about this morning. Is I have this new to me gun, this old SIG P210 with, it's basically a double action only trigger, but it's not. It's got a few things that are different. And I thought I'd talk about that this morning because I really didn't talk about it much in my unboxing because it was just an unboxing. And it's called a DAK, and I've been told by my good friend Gil over at Hard Target, and by the way, if you're looking for a hard target, you might check him out. I'll put a link to his channel right here. Yeah, and on the end, I'll put a video that I did a while ago of the hard target I got from him. You can see what I'm talking about, in case you haven't seen that. He said it was made, it's called a DAK because it's a double action Kellerman. And apparently, or Kellerman was the designer of this trigger, and it's a very odd trigger, really, except for if you just take it for face value and use it like a normal revolver guy would use it, it's basically a double action only trigger. But what it does do is when you pull the slide back and chamber the first round, or when you shoot and the slide comes back and rechambers the next round, it's partially cocking. See this? It partially cocks the hammer. So it's got a partial cocking going. I won't say a half cock. Even a Colt single action Army, when you put it on half cock, I don't feel it's half cock. This is definitely not half cock though. It's just a very short partial cock. And then what that's doing is it lightens the trigger a little, but it's still a long, full double action trigger. Boom. Got that? Yeah. And I did a little research, and they're supposed to be set at 6.5 pounds on that trigger pull, and mine's coming out with my gauge at 8 pounds, or a little, actually 8 pounds 3 ounces is what it averaged. So it's a little heavier on this gun than, but I don't know. Maybe they weren't all the same to start with, and maybe the 6.5 pounds I'm reading on the internet isn't actually what it is. But this one, that exact trigger pull right there, is 8 pounds 3 ounces. Okay. Now, as the gun chambers the next round, and your finger, if your finger hasn't gone out to reset it, as you release it and it resets, oh, there's 2 clicks. Well, yeah, it resets twice, and that one you hear in the center we'll have to fire it again, won't we? We'll put it back and we'll reset it on the first click. There, that click right there, that is put in there and designed for people that might be in an incident using the gun and be really going, their heartbeat's going, they've just crapped in their shorts and they don't let the trigger out to fully reset. That's a half reset in case they don't reset it. To me that's kind of but that's the theory. It'll still work even though they've half reset it, and to compensate for the short stroke now it has, they add extra poundage to that position, and this is a 10-pound trigger pull, at least on this gun. It jumps up a couple pounds. So you reset it all the way, and you're back on this gun, you're back to 8 pounds 3 ounces. Of course, the gun's already partially cocked. If it weren't cocked at all, and you pull the trigger, then it's way off the charts. I didn't even measure that, but I'm sure it's way off the charts. But since you got a chamber around, I don't know how you're going to get to that point. You're never going to have that. But actually, technically, you've got 3 different trigger pulls there. You've got, if it weren't chambered trigger pull, dry fire trigger pull, which is even more. Then the partially cocked loaded trigger pull, which would be 8 pounds 3 ounces on this gun. And then as you let it out, if you short stroke it and go to the first reset, then that is, again, a hard trigger pull, and that's probably what the dry fire trigger pull would be at, but I'm not going to measure it because it's just too much. I've tried, no. At any rate, then you got that 2 extra pounds, 10 pounds, and that is probably what the dry fire position would be. Now, is that confusing or is that confusing? And yeah, it's actually a double action only trigger is how I'm going to look at it. So there it is on half cock. I pulled it back to that first click, which would be the full reset once you shoot. So now it is what it would be like if you just chambered the round and now you're firing it and you go through the full stroke, trigger stroke, and you got an 8-pound 3-ounce on this one. Your mileage may vary on whatever one you've got. They're supposed to be 6.5 pounds, but this one measured 8-pound 3 ounces on my gauge. Then, time to reset, and you go to the short, you short stroke it, first click, and here you're going to have 2 more pounds of trigger pull, basically. Or you let it out the full way, you hear that second click, and now you're back to it being cocked. You're back at the 8-pound 3 ounces on this gun. So the theory in this is, from everything I've learned that I've read now, Mr. Kellerman's theory on developing this gun was so if someone were using it and took the first shot and short stroked on the second shot, they could still get a shot off. But to make sure they don't accidentally shoot again after they've short stroked it, they've increased the trigger pull in the short stroke. I shouldn't laugh. So that they reduce the chance of accidentally discharging it after a short stroke. And then if you operate it correctly and release the trigger entirely to the full reset, then you're back, because it'll have chambered a new round, you're back with it partially cocked, and you've got the original 8-pound trigger pull again. So I don't know if it's really that important to put that short stroke capability in there. Being an old revolver guy, I'm never going to short stroke anything. And that's just a fact. But I can clearly state I can't ever remember ever short stroking a trigger on a gun in my life. And maybe that's because I started out on revolvers. I don't know. So I don't view that as something that is necessary at all. And it really isn't good for anything except for if you accidentally short stroke it. Because you gain no advantage by going to the first reset position and not using the second reset position because you're into a harder trigger pull. You might as well take it out to the beginning and have the same trigger pull each time that you've trained on. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, very kind of a confusing thing. So my great deal on a SIG is to me a double action only gun still. Yeah, because that's how I'll use it. Because I can guarantee you, even if I wanted to short stroke it on purpose to use that short reset, I could probably never do it. If I were trying to do it, I couldn't do it. So it's kind of immaterial to me, but I find the whole thing kind of interesting. It's a kind of a, I can't say it's an answer to a non-existent problem, because I'm sure there have been a lot of officers that didn't get the second shot off because they short stroked it. But I would doubt that there were any officers that didn't get the second shot off because they short stroked it who started out on revolvers. Probably just ones that never shot revolvers and were trained in on automatics to get from the get-go. And again, it's probably law enforcement that a lot of guys in law enforcement are not gun guys. That's just something they have to shoot a gun and learn how to do it because they want to be in law enforcement. So those are probably the candidates for short stroking it. However, that all being said, it's still a cool gun and I like it. And it's as close to a double action only as I've seen in a long time. Of course, they don't make this anymore. They don't make the DAK Trigger anymore. Apparently it's gone by the wayside, but I like it, actually. It's fortunately I didn't get one that was 6.5 pound trigger pull, because that I probably wouldn't like. But this one at 8 pounds 3 ounces for that partially cocked full stroke trigger pull, yeah, it's very comfortable. It's right in there. It could be a tad heavier, maybe, but it's got such a long stroke to it that I'm perfectly happy with it. It's as close to a square revolver as I'm going to get, because you can't find these things anymore because nobody's making them. The old double action automatics, like they were big for a couple of years there, right as in the 90s, early 90s. And Smith & Wesson had a lot of them. Every one they made, they had every automatic Smith & Wesson made back in the day, they made a double action only version of. And I carried that 4006 Smith & Wesson, which I actually shot it very well, and actually liked the feel of the gun after I got that. They had different plastic grip panels that fit on there, and they had one that had the same profile as a 1911. I shot that very well. I just never liked the magazine disconnect. Just never have warmed up to that theory of your magazine's out, you got nothing. You couldn't even drop one in the chamber and use it. So at any rate, there you have it, a little further explanation of the action, the DAK, which thanks to Gail again, I know is now the double action Kellerman. And now I also know how the action truly works. And I was wondering about that click in the center when I bought it, and I just went, eh. Because I didn't care, because I picked up the gun, and I just love the way it feels, and you know, it kind of is nostalgic. It really has that look from the 90s. And I'm kind of, you know, those were the heydays for me. Not the best years of my life, but awful lot of good times. And stuff that nowadays I'm sure I'd get in trouble for. Anyway, guys, thought I'd share that with you and actually kind of explain it. I tried to explain it the best I could. It's kind of hard to understand, but the Sig Sauer DAK Trigger. There you go. Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Till next time, go out and stay safe.